Welcome to episode 17 of Bobolog. Today I will be sharing progress on my sweater that I am designing, one new knitting cast on, some new yarn, future knitting plans, and I'll also be talking a lot about spinning. Greetings, my name is Bobolog and this is my vlog where I come to share all of my knitting and other fibre craft adventures. I live in Victoria and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I live and create, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, and I would like to pay my respect to their elders, past, present and future, and I would like to extend that respect and acknowledgement to all Aboriginal peoples across Australia. Thank you for joining me for another one of these episodes today. You can also join me on Instagram at Platypus Knitting, where I share all of the things that I am doing, although I've fallen off that a bit lately just because of life. And you can also find me on Ravelry under Bobolog. In the YouTube description below, you will find links to those social profiles and also to a website where I have the transcripts for these episodes and also the links to everything that I mention throughout this episode. So I guess let's get into it. So I'm gonna start today with eyes and ears. So there is one vlog that I have started watching since the previous episode came out that I hadn't watched before, and that is called Books, Hooks and Yarns, or at least the playlist was originally Books, Hooks and Yarns. I believe from what I can see that Crystal, whose knitting vlog it is, has recently started a new series called Crystal Knits. So as I have said before, when I start watching or listening to a new vlog or podcast, I have to go from the very beginning. So I'm still only a few episodes in, and there are 30 videos in the Books, Hooks and Yarns playlist. I do find it interesting that she calls it Books, Hooks and Yarns, because while she has talked about crochet, it is mainly about knitting, and she says at the beginning of it that she's a beginner knitting and she's a beginner in all of the crafts that she does, but she's not, I mean, in my mind she's not that completely new of a beginner, because it seems like she's done a lot, but it's still, as always, really interesting to watch her journey of trying new things out, and that's always really fun to see. One of the other new crafts that she picks up and sort of shares throughout is her adventures in yarn dyeing. So she, initially at least, she primarily dyes using food dyes, which I had heard of before, but I'd always been just a bit skeptical about their color fastness. So I'm really interested to keep watching her progress and see if she, brings back any of those projects that she has dyed, so you can see how the color has faded or held. So I'm really hoping to see some more of that throughout her videos. She does also actually live in Victoria, but we haven't met in person. So we are part of an online group of knitters and Aussie podcasters, and so I've met her in video chat, but we haven't met yet, so hopefully one day we will be able to catch up in real life. So that's it for eyes and ears. Next, I will jump into handy dandy, which is just going to be a short one, because I have not done much in the last couple of weeks. I haven't worked on any old projects, but I have cast on one new project. So I have done very little of it. Just this here. Oh, a bit tangled and messed up because I always get in such a mess when I'm doing color work 2 at a time, but I can't help myself. I fear second sock syndrome, even though these aren't socks. I guess, what would you call it? Second mitten syndrome. But if there's like an overall sort of catchphrase for the whole idea of it, second pair? No, that's not right. Anyway, I like to work 2 at a time because I want my gauge to be consistent throughout. And I just feel like, I don't know if this is true, but in my mind, it would take so much longer to knit one item and then to knit a second item, even though I'm sure they're actually really similar times to complete the thing because you're knitting the same amount. But anyway, I really like working 2 at a time in Magic Loop for anything that comes in a pair. Even sleeves on a garment, I try to do 2 at a time, even if you're picking up from the garment and knitting down, so it's all very attached and there's a lot of maneuvering going on. Anyway, I digress. These are what I have cast on recently and have been working on. These are called Bernie's Big Mood Mittens by Jess Anderson. So, as the name implies, they are inspired by Bernie's Mittens, which I'm sure you know about if you're a knitter, because it just kind of, it blew up in the knitting world when Bernie was wearing knitted gloves that turned out to be, I believe, someone had upcycled an old sweater and cut it up and sewn them into mittens and gifted them to him. Anyway, my cousin at the start of the year requested these gloves, and I have to say, it's not something that I was interested in knitting at all. In fact, the first place that I went online was Etsy, looking for what options there were for just buying imitation gloves that someone else had made, because I just really wasn't interested in making them. But then, of course, I couldn't help myself. I had to look at Ravelry as well, and I guess I was trying to find something that had something a bit more different, had something unique to it that would make it more enjoyable and interesting for me. And I found these patterns by Jess, which actually, so you can see, so there's one type of pattern there, and then on the back of it, or I can just show you on this next one here, is a different pattern. So they're called the Big Mood Mittens because this bit here, you won't, you can maybe kind of see, it spells the word mood. I believe that goes on the palm, and then this pattern goes on the back of the hand. So because I'm doing 2 at a time, they're not knit so that they're facing in towards each other. So I'm not knitting 2 backs and then going around and knitting 2 fronts. I'm following how she has the charts laid out, which is the inside. I'm explaining this really badly. Basically, she has one chart for the right mitten and one chart for the left mitten, and because the gussets for the thumbs are in the same place because they both start at the thumb gusset and then go around. So both of my gussets are on the same side. So the hands are being knit like that. So one hand facing me and one hand facing out, which is why I get a bit confused figuring out which part of the chart I'm following. But now that the pattern is more established, it's kind of easier to know exactly where I'm at. But so the back of the hand is the part that's going to look like Bernie's mittens, and then the inside is going to say mood, which you can kind of maybe make out there. There's M-O, where is it? O-D. So I saw these and I thought they were quite interesting and pretty cool, and I thought that my cousin would like them, and I showed them to her and she absolutely loved them. If she hadn't, then I probably would have just said that I'd be happy to buy her some ready-made ones from Etsy as a present to her. But since she was really interested in these ones, I was happy to knit them for her. And also, I love her. I also consider her one of my closest friends, so I'm always happy to make something for her. So that's that one there. I am for once knitting it in the recommended yarn, which is Cascade 220, which is, I believe, a Peruvian Highland wool. I haven't got a label here with me, but I believe it's 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It's probably one of the most used yarns out there. At least I have heard of it a lot, and it seems like a really common staple yarn. I have never knit with it before. I'm quite liking it. It is, I think it's a worsted weight yarn. So it is the recommended yarn in the pattern. And since I had access to it, I really wanted to use it, but the pattern is also big. It says in the pattern that they are massive gloves. She says something like they're ridiculously huge or they're laughably huge or something like that. And I mean, I want my cousin to be able to wear them, so I have gone down in needle size. I can't, what does she recommend? I feel like the pattern recommends something like 4.5. Yeah, 4.5 millimeter needles, I think. Oh, I can check actually in my trusty notebook here. Let me see. So, yeah, so the pattern recommends 4.5 millimeter needles at a gauge of 20 stitches and 28 rows in 10 centimeters. So I didn't bother doing a swatch for these, but I went down to 3.25 millimeter needles, and I was a bit concerned that it would be really stiff and dense, but it's not. It is quite firm, which I think is really good, but it's still, you know, got some stretch to it. It doesn't feel really stiff, and of course blocking it will help it relax a bit as well. They are still a bit big, so if I put them on me, and I have to remember that I have tiny hands, you can see how much extra space there is. Can you see if I do it there? You can kind of see how much extra space there is beyond my thumb there. And I think my cousin has pretty small hands as well. I didn't actually check how much bigger they are than mine. I'm sure they are because I have teensy tiny hands, but I think that's a pretty comfortable ease to have there for mittens, but there are still some more, a couple more increases to go on the gusset, and then I might just have to eliminate some rows so that it doesn't end up ridiculously long. So I'm kind of just going to try to figure that out as I go. But other than that, they are working well. So I have finished the section in this dark brown. So the white is going to continue in the next color work bit, but it's going to switch to a light brown, and then there's going to be some dark gray in here as well, but they are coming along really nicely. I am using my Leica circular knitting needles, which are really comfortable to use, and I think that's all that I have to say about those ones. I'm pretty sure my cousin doesn't watch this, but I do have some other plans that I won't mention until I start working on them. A, in case I never get around to it, and B, just in case she does watch, I don't want to reveal too much to her. So it's really cold in Victoria at the moment. It feels like we've just skipped autumn and jumped straight into winter. It has been freezing. So I thought, that I would aim to finish these by the end of this month and give them to her before winter officially starts. But I think I'm going to prioritize these now and get them done as soon as I possibly can, because I'm sure she'd appreciate being able to use them in the freezing weather that we've been having lately. So that's the Bernie's Big Mood Mittens, which is a free pattern, I should say. A free pattern by Jess Anderson. And yeah, it's coming along really nicely. My next segment is eye candy. So I have some beautiful yarns to share with you, and surprise, surprise, they're from Tarndwarncoort. So if you've been watching this year, I talk about Tarndwarncoort pretty much every single episode. I hadn't knit with them before this year, unless you count some mini skeins that I'd ordered last year just to do some swatching in. But I love their yarn. I'm loving working with their yarns. I love the people at the farm, at the homestead. They're all just really friendly, and they're really inviting, and I think they're just wonderful people. I did go, you would have seen in a previous episode possibly, that I went to a natural dyeing workshop at their homestead earlier in the year, which I absolutely loved, and I bought some hand-dyed yarn while I was there as well, and I found out shortly after that my favorite color of theirs had actually sold out, which I was completely devastated by. That's this one here, which is called Mallard. I love this color so much, and I was so crushed to find out it had sold out. I wish I hadn't waited to buy it, but I've been trying not to buy yarn until I'm ready to start working with it. So when they revealed that was all gone, I contacted them and I asked if they could possibly try to hand dye a batch that was similar to this. And actually the only reason that I thought to do that is because they had posted that they had dyed some 4-ply yarn that was similar to the mallard that was sold out, which is how I found out that the mallard had sold out. So because they had already hand dyed some 4-ply, I asked if they could possibly try to do the same with some 8-ply, because the pattern that I am dreaming of for this yarn requires a DK weight yarn. So that's the mallard there. They did do a sweater's quantity of a similar color in their 8-ply, which is this beauty here. It's really hard to get an accurate color. I think it's it's much brighter in real life, and it's brighter and darker. Both of these are darker in real life than it looks like they're showing up on the camera, but you can see they got it pretty close. Like that's really impressive how close they were able to get the color there. I still somewhat prefer the darker color of the mallard there, but I absolutely really do love this this hand dyed version here. I do love how bright it is, actually. Yeah, it's definitely the right color for me. So I bought 6 skeins of this. They had 6 skeins and I took them all because I want to knit a sweater out of it, a particular sweater that I have had my eye on. The thing is, they had another colorway, a variegated colorway that's really similar to this. My assumption is that out of the same dye pot, maybe they had some colors left over in there and they put in a few extra skeins and did a variegated version, because this is the other one here. And you can see there is a lot more of a difference in the tonality there. So if I put them side by side, you can really see the difference there. But they are definitely a similar color. So the thing is, the sweater that I have my heart set on, I now don't know whether I want to knit it completely in this one or if I want to use both. So the sweater is called Dione and it's by Natasha Hornby. And this is one of those patterns that as soon as I saw it, I fell in love with it and I knew that I had to knit it. I have so many patterns in my favorites and so many in my queue on Ravelry, but there's really only a handful that are must knits, and this one, Dione, was definitely immediately a must knit. I think it is elegant and sexy and stylish and just beautiful. And interestingly, most of the projects on Ravelry have all been done in a single color. I think there is one that is done in 2 colors, which was my original thought for making it. So if you look at the pattern, it's got the top part of it is plain and then it goes down into a pattern, and it almost looks like you're wearing an off-the-shoulder sweater over the top of another garment. So my thought was that if you did the top part in a different color, it would emphasize that look. There is one project on Ravelry, the last time I looked, that had actually done it in 2 different colors. And while it does look really good, the ones that are all in one color also, look amazing. The original is just done in one color. But now I can't actually decide if I would have this color in the top bit and this color in the bottom. Part of me likes that the difference is would be quite subtle and more like the original. But then part of me is also like, is it too subtle, and would it actually just look better if I did it all just in the one color? I honestly can't decide. So I have enough of this to do the whole thing. And then I bought 2 skeins of this one, which I'm sure would be plenty to do the top part. And I definitely can't get a whole garment out of the 2 skeins I bought of this. But yeah, I just really don't know what to do. So let me know what you think. but it's not something that I'll be able to cast on anytime soon, I'm afraid. I've got a lot of other things that I've planned that I have to get out by certain deadlines this year, fingers crossed. So this one might have to wait until next year, but it is definitely on the queue, and since I have the yarn now, it's definitely jumped up in the queue. So one day, but yeah, let me know which version of it you think I should do. The other yarn that I bought from Tarndi is their Cider House Red, which I have mentioned before. So that is this one here. When I was at the natural dyeing workshop, I didn't realize somehow that the yarns in their farm shops were hand dyed yarns and were not the yarns that I had shade cards for. So I purchased a few skeins of this thinking it was the Cider House Red. It's clearly not. They're very different. So this gorgeous bright one I will keep for something for myself. I haven't quite decided what I am going to create out of that one yet. There's a few options in my queue. I just haven't quite decided, and again, it's probably not going to be cast on this year because I have other things to work on. This Cider House Red is going to be my next big cast on, because it's going to become a sweater for my partner. His birthday is in mid-June, so I really need to cast this on and get started, because I highly doubt that I'm going to get it done in time, but I really want to try to get it done in time. It will be my first garment, my first adult garment made in fingering weight yarn, so wish me luck. But yes, that's the beautiful Cider House Red color from Tarndwarncoort. So if you're familiar with them, you would be aware that they are the family who runs the homestead are the original breeders of the Polworth sheep. So their yarn is 100% Polworth. They do have a silk blend variety, but I haven't jumped into that yet. I feel like once I have made these, I need to try some other sheep breeds, but it's when you've found something that you love, it's hard to pull yourself away sometimes, especially when they have so many beautiful options and colorways to use. But I do want to try. I'm always wanting to try new things, so I'm going to try not to buy any more from them, at least until I have finished what I've got, which is more than 2 sweater quantities worth of yarn. So that was a really big eye candy. Next up is Craft for Thought. So this segment is sort of meant to be the section where I talk about things that have gone on in my life and relate it back to crafting, or I just talk about crafting things. It's basically just a chatter about whatever I want segment. So before I filmed the previous episode, actually, which was, I believe I filmed that on Anzac weekend. The week before that, I stubbed my toe and it still hurts. It is still bruised, and I have only just, it's been 3 weeks and I have only just gotten an x-ray for it, and I'm only just going to see my GP about it for the first time this coming week, because it's a stubbed toe. I walked into a wall because I was too busy watching crafting things on TV. So I walked into the wall and it didn't hurt that much. I have stubbed my toe much more painfully, so I didn't really think anything of it, but then it continued to hurt. And I pretty much haven't done any exercise since then because I can't use my foot. And the reason that I haven't gone to the doctor sooner is it feels better So I think it's fine, but then I'll do something like I'll go swimming, or I'll go for just a little bit of a walk. Or the other day I accidentally like snagged it very minimally when I put my socks on, and it hurt. So any of those little things that I try to do with my foot hurts it again, and I limp for another day, and then it gets better again, and it's just a cycle. But it's been 3 weeks. I really should have gotten it looked at sooner, and I'm gonna get it looked at now. But the point is, because I haven't been able to get out and about so much, I feel like I should have gotten a lot of crafting done. And I guess I kind of have. It just doesn't feel like it because I don't have much to show you. But also I think because that has been taken away from me, the option of going out, of being able to like go for a nice walk every day, or whatever else I might want to do, because I can't do that and I don't have a choice about not being able to do that. I feel like I'm more restless, and I'm like, it's harder for me to sit on the couch and just craft, because I feel like it's kind of like, because it's not my choice, I feel like I'm being imprisoned on the couch in a way. So I don't want to do it. So yeah, that's kind of been interesting. I really feel like I could have and should have taken so much more advantage of being confined to the couch because of my stupid toe. But I haven't, and it is what it is. There are also some other things that have been going on that have, reduced my knitting and crafting mojo a little bit. One of them is that this has just been a difficult time of year. So April is my birthday month, and I had a lovely birthday, and that's all really nice. But April has started having some difficult associations for me as well. So a couple of years ago, at the start of April, I lost my grandfather on my mother's side. So he's he was in the Philippines with my uncle, living with my uncle there, and that was when COVID was fresh, and none of us here in Australia could fly over, but they were able to do the service via Facebook Live. But that was really difficult, as I'm sure you can imagine. I couldn't even go and watch the service with my mother. I did that on my own here in my house because everyone was locked down. Anyway, so that's one difficult April association. And then another is last year, at the end of April, that's when my uncle was admitted to hospital, and this past week we actually had the anniversary. We had the anniversary of his passing, so that's been really hard. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to get all teary about this. Yeah, so that's been really hard for me. It feels like the end of April is like, it just feels like a countdown to this time, and yeah, so I'm sure that has also contributed to me not being so inspired to craft a lot. Yeah, and I guess one other thing that probably has also contributed is that I am getting so into the other crafts that I am doing that sometimes I'm just paralyzed about making a choice about which one to do. So really, knitting wins out most of the time, but I have a weaving project that that I have planned that I need to get done this month because it's going to be a gift for someone, and there's also all of this spinning that I want to do. So sometimes I just dither about which one to take up, and I don't end up doing anything. Yeah, so I think that was a bit of a messy ramble. I think that was all that I had to say on Craft for Thought anyway, just sort of musing out loud, no real point or purpose to it. So I will jump onto the next segment, which is Out of My Mind. So this is the segment where I talk about my design. So I can't seem to design multiple things at once. So I do have other ideas in my head for other things that I want to do, but because this one has been taking me so long, I want to get it out, and I want to put all of my time and energy into getting it out before I try to get onto something new, because I feel like once I start something new, I'll get so caught up in that this one just won't finish, and I really want to finish this one. So this pattern still doesn't have a name. So if you have any ideas from what you see, then I would love to hear from you. Just let me know in the comments below. But I do have a few ideas of what to call it. I just can't decide. So this is it here. So that's the back of it with a little box plate, and I can pull it out enough yarn without it going everywhere. That's the front of it there. So this is where the V-neck starts, and it looks like I have done nothing since I last showed this to you a couple of weeks ago, but I promise you that I have. I had gone all the way up and was about to do the cast off for the back neck, and then I counted my stitches and I checked my calculations and I realized I had done it completely wrong. So I feel like I'm trying to put too many complex ideas into this sweater, but I really want to do them because I think they'll produce a better fitting garment. At least that's my hope. So one of those things is that the front part of the garment is slightly wider than the back part, so that there's more room in the front, because people generally have more bulk in this area. So when I calculated the V-neck decreases, I had accidentally used the stitch count for the back. So I was having too many stitches at the front by the time I got up to the shoulders. So the seam wouldn't have worked well because there were more at the front than there were at the back, than there would have been at the back for the shoulder seam. So I knit nearly 60 rows, and then I realized that. I went back to my calculations and I figured out what I thought it should be. I tinked all the way back down, and then I knit all the way back up to binding off, to binding off the back neck. So I hadn't bound off anything for the back neck yet, and I stopped again and I counted my stitches, and they still weren't right. So I looked at my calculations and I realized that there was just one tiny bit that I had done wrong. And now I've tinked it all the way back to pretty much the start of the V-neck again. So it looks like I have done nothing, but there's just been a lot of ripping back, which has been really frustrating. And I think I need to put this in a timeout for a bit. I'm probably going to put this on a timeout, get started on this one. I seem to be knitting in this color a lot lately. It's kind of funny. I feel like my knitting kind of goes in waves. So right now it feels like everything that I'm doing is this color and or color work. And then the next few projects that I have planned, aside from this one here, are all going to be cables. So right now I'm knitting a garment and an accessory in color work. The next garment, not including this one, the next garment that I have planned is going to be cables, and the next accessories that I have planned are going to be cables. So it never seems to be a mix and match. It always just seems to happen that it's all one thing or it's all another. There was a point last year, I think, where it felt like everything that I was knitting was the same color. Yeah, so it all just seems to come in waves. Anyway, bit of a tangent there. What was I talking about? Yes, so this, I think this needs to go in a timeout for a bit. I will work on something else, and before I come to this, I will double, triple, quadruple check my calculations, because this, yeah, I don't want to have to rip all this out a third time. So that's that there, and don't want to talk about it anymore. So let's move on. Actually, sorry, there is one more thing that I want to talk about. I have made one mistake on this, which is just here. See this triangle-y thingy here. Is it this triangle-y thingy here? This bit of color work here, that shouldn't be there. That was a mistake. But even though I have ripped back twice, and I could have ripped back down to that point and redone it and eliminated that mistake, I'm already doing so much re-knitting that like I couldn't even bear to do that much extra ripping out and re-knitting. So when I'm done, I'm probably just going to make, you know, a couple of tiny patches and just try to cover that up with a patch attached over to the top of it. But anyway, that's just a minor thing compared to everything else, and now I'm done talking about it. Next up is Multicrafty, and it's all about spinning. So just super briefly, this is where I am with my spinning on my Turkish spindle. So I've got two here. I believe this is the first 7 gram lot that I spun from the fold. This is the second 7 gram lot that I spun from the fold. I don't know why the first one is so much neater, such a neater ball than the second one. This one just seems to want to collapse. But anyway, so they are both just completely solid in this this gray, light gray color of roving that I have. And then the third and final ply spun from the fold is this one here. What am I doing? So I'm not sure, you should be able to make out, there's some bits of tan in there along with the pink. So these are samples. So this is the when I bought this huge amount of roving, I had some color samples sent to me. So I'm trying to use them up in these practice spins. So I've just very roughly tried to hand blend some pink and some of like the tiny amount of tan that I had. And I only did one pass of hand blending them because I didn't mind too much if they were separate, since it's going to be a separate ply all on its own. It's gonna like marl, barber pole, I don't know what the correct term for it is, but yeah, so once this one is done, I will ply them together. So that's my attempt at spinning from the fold on a Turkish spindle. And I'm not sure if I have said it on this vlog, but I had decided a couple of months ago that okay, let me start again. So when I originally took up spinning and tried to teach myself spinning, I had looked at a course for beginners from the Hand Weavers and Spinners Guild of Victoria. But that course is on a spinning wheel, and I do want to get myself a spinning wheel eventually, but when I started, of course, I didn't want to make that huge investment before I even knew that I liked it. So I tried to learn as much as I could on my own first. And then I thought, once I know that I liked it, I'll sign up and do the course. But then a couple of months ago, I decided that I wouldn't actually sign up for the course because it is on a wheel and I only have a drop spindle. And I wasn't sure how easy that would be to translate across different tools. And also I didn't want to do the course before I was ready to buy a spinning wheel. And I feel like, or I felt like I didn't want to buy a spinning wheel for a couple of years. I wanted to give it some time, and we may move house in the next couple of years. So I was thinking I shouldn't buy a wheel until we move, if we're gonna move. So I didn't want to do the course now and then forget everything that I learned by the time I actually got my own wheel and have to relearn it all again. So I had decided that I would put off doing the course. But then in the last episode, I mentioned that I started doing some online classes in Craftsy, and there were spinning classes in amongst those. And they sort of helped me realize that as good as they were, it's still, of course, so different to have someone actually looking at what you yourself are doing and correcting you and instructing you, instead of you just trying to copy what other people are doing without actually knowing if you're doing the right techniques. So I kind of realized that I didn't want to form bad habits or the wrong habits with spinning, and then do a course and have to untrain my thinking and my muscle memory, if there were things that I was doing wrong. So I decided to sign up for the course, and I had my first class yesterday. I'm filming this on Mother's Day, which is the Sunday the 8th of May, and I did my first class yesterday. There are going to be 4 lessons in total, and it was so much fun. I loved it. It was, I couldn't stop smiling. It was just really well done. There are about 10 of us in the course, and the instructors are really knowledgeable, obviously, and just doing it on a wheel, it's so much faster, obviously, and it is quite different, but there are motions that are of course the same. It's like the same drafting motions, it's just slightly different with the tools that you use. And one thing that I'm trying to do with it is, when I do on the spindle, I did try both hands, but I was finding that I really was a lot more comfortable holding the fiber in my left hand and spinning the spindle and drafting the fiber with my right hand. With the wheel, because I don't need to worry about flicking the spindle with my right hand, which for some reason I just couldn't get the hang of with my left hand. I've decided that I want to teach myself to do it with my left hand, because I'm just trying to balance, which arms, which hands, which side of the body that I'm doing things with, so that not all of the strain is on my right hand, which, as you would know if you watch this, I have issues with. So one of the ways I'm trying to manage that is to try to spread the pain. spread, you know, share around which muscles are getting used. So I did initially start drafting with my right hand, but then I tried with my left hand, and it wasn't as difficult as I had expected it to be. So even though I am more comfortable drafting with my right hand, I want to train myself to do it with the left hand on a spinning wheel. So yeah, I'm going to focus on that. We are starting off with spinning from fleece, which I've never done before. It's actually this here. So this is some raw fleece from, I believe it's a Border Leicester Merino cross. So you can see the beautiful crimp there, the tips and the fluffy cut ends. And they let us take a big bag of it home so that we can practice. We also get to take a wheel home for the duration of the course, which is fabulous. And I'm using a Ashford Joy, I believe it is. So it's a double treadle. I wanted a double treadle again, because then it's not just all on one side of my body that's doing the work. You can't see my feet pedaling, but I'm pretending to pedal in midair. Yeah, so an Ashford Joy and spinning a fleece. I have bought a flicker, which is this fun lethal looking tool here. So you get a bit of it, of the fleece, and you sort of like brush it out with this tool here, and it makes it this beautiful fluffiness here. So I'm sure I could have combed it out more or flicked it out more, whatever the method is, and maybe, well, I don't know. This seems like a good amount to me. It's just nice and fluffy. The fibers have been separated out a bit so that it's a bit easier for drafting, but because it's in the grease, which means it hasn't been scoured yet, you can really feel the lanolin, you can feel the oils, the natural oils in that. So they said that that's good for, it helps the fibers stick together better. So they think it's great for learning on, and I think they also like just spinning in the grease in general, I think. But yeah, they said it's a great one for beginners as well. So that's what it looks like once it's been combed or flicked or whatever you call it. And then they got us spinning on the wheel, and so they explained what to do with short forward draw, but they were saying that the first lesson was more about just getting it a continuous thread rather than getting a perfect yarn. So my yarn, as you can see, it has lots of pigtails. So one thing that I'm finding with spinning on the wheel is I have been able to draft a fine thread. It's quite thick and thin, really, actually, but because it just keeps feeding onto the bobbin immediately, it's not like with the spindle where I spin a bit, I check the twist to see that I'm happy with it, and once I am, then I wind it onto the bobbin. This one is just going on straight onto the bobbin, and unless I stop and check the twist, I don't know what this is doing. So there's lots of pigtails because I'm over twisting, I believe that is. So I have no control over that yet. So I'm just learning the motions and to get it to be, I don't know. But I mean, it's doing something. Yeah, and I'm pretty excited to be learning that, and now I am really keen on getting my own wheel, so we'll see how long I can hold off on doing that for. One other thing that I found is that joining new fiber is something that I find pretty difficult. It's actually kind of easier with the wheel because you're not having to worry about keeping it spinning and having twists go in, which is what catches the new fibers and joins it. So joining is easier in a way, but what I'm finding is that while it's easier for the fibers to catch, it's, for me, it's harder to control the thickness at the join. So even if I am managing to get a really fine fiber, pretty consistent, a really fine thread consistently, my joints are fat lumps, and then it goes nice and thin again. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to getting more into the technique side of things, but I'll spend the next week until the second class practicing a lot and getting through as much of that fleece as I can, and just getting in as much practice as I can before then. Yeah, so that's really exciting. And yeah, too many crafts. There's too many crafts that I want to do. So I really should start wrapping this up now because it's been nearly an hour and I have to go pick up my Mother's Day present. So just quickly, Heartful of Craft. I am grateful for the Hand Weavers and Spinners Guild of Victoria. I wish there was a Knitters Guild. I mean, I think there is a Knitters Guild, but it doesn't actually do anything. As far as I'm aware, they just do one yarn and craft market, which is coming up this month. But that's the only thing that they do, I think. It's the only thing I ever see that they do. Anyway, so it was really interesting because it's the Hand Weavers and Spinners Guild, but at the start of the class, when she was getting us all to introduce ourselves, and she introduced herself, the teacher introduced herself, she didn't really talk about weaving, she talked about knitting, and most other people there were knitters. There were a few crocheters, but most people were knitters. And I was surprised by that because I watch Roxanne Richardson's vlog, and when she took up spinning, I think she was the only knitter in her class. I think everyone else was spinning just for spinning itself, or maybe they were weaving. But I feel like, from memory, I feel like she was the only knitter. So I was kind of expecting that here, but then everyone was talking about knitting, and a couple of people were wearing their own hand knits. So that was really cool. It was nice to be part of a group that I know really shares the same interests as me. So that was really good. Yeah, so thankful to the guild, really thankful to the teachers, Carmel and Sarah. They were both really great. They would, they'd tell us what to do, and then they would go around and watch what we were all individually doing and correct us here and there. The main thing for me is they kept telling me to slow down my treadling because I was like this, and I think I've got to be more like this. But yeah, that's something that I'm struggling with. The other thing is when I'm changing something in how I'm drafting, or if I'm joining yarn or something like that, I have been doing like little micro pauses in my treadling. So, and that's enough. That was enough to start the wheel spinning in the opposite direction. So I kept having to then correct that. So just consistency and slow speed in treadling is something that I've got to focus on and work on. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for spending your time here with me again. Like I said before, all of my social media links and all the links to everything that I've talked about are in the YouTube video description below. If you like this video, then please give it a like, and I hope that you consider subscribing to my Platypus Knitting channel as well. I hope you're all taking care of yourselves, staying connected to the people you love, and finding time for happiness, relaxation, and crafting. See you in a couple of weeks. Fare thee well.